Good afternoon, folks. This afternoon we're filming from what we call the Garden Studio. We've added to our team William Blackwell as our cameraman, and each week we try to improve our technology and our technique. So William will be manning the cameras and the sound equipment. Kendra Manis, publisher and editor of Slidell magazine, and I would like to thank the sponsors for participating in this program. We hope these readings give you a little bit of joy and a little bit of respite from the trials and tribulations we're going through. Tonight, our first reading is titled The Trunk. The trunk sat on my Aunt Nell's back porch for years. It really was not a porch, as you and I know one, but it had once been a porch. In the old days, homes had back porches. This was a cool respite in the summertime for relaxation, as well as for sitting chores such as shelling butter beans and shucking corn. When toilet facilities moved indoors, the areas were enclosed to accommodate them. Being on the outer edge of the building, it made the bathroom easy to plumb. It was also the place where washing machines were kept when they were finally acquired. So in this enclosure, known as the back porch, the old trunk went unnoticed for years. My aunt's husband passed away, and after a number of years, it was deemed best that she not live alone any longer. She was moved to an assisted living center. Of all the furniture from her home that she could have taken with her, one of the few pieces she took was this old trunk. In her little institutional apartment, it served as a coffee table, a depository for her financial data, family photos, and other items that were sentimental to her. It was not a beautiful piece, and it never was an expensive trunk, but it was not a bottom-of-the-line one either. I suspect that my aging aunt's days were numbered, so I made what I assumed could be my last visit to see her. Being the self-appointed family historian, I wanted to be told whatever family tidbits that she might recall. She opened the trunk and pulled out an old photograph. The photo was of her grandmother, who passed away in 1900, and her 8 sisters. The photo was dated 1895. My aunt pointed her bony finger at each of the ladies in the photo and gave me a brief biography of each. Finally, she came to the last one on the right. That's Aunt Emma. This was her trunk, by the way. I suppose she left it to you when she died, I asked. Well, that's not exactly what happened, but she did leave me everything she had. All she had was this old trunk, her old clothes, and a ring. I gave the ring to your cousin years ago. I guess I should have thrown away the trunk. After all those years on my back porch, it is now the centerpiece of my little living room. She motioned as if that tiny room was some spacious mansion. Tell me about Aunt Emma, I urged. Now, you know she was not my aunt. Emma was my great aunt. She was never married, and she drifted around, first living with her sisters, and when they all died out, she lived with her nieces and nephews. She usually did not stay in one place long. She would only stay a few weeks at a time, and she traveled with everything she owned in this particular trunk. Well, one day in 1946, Judith May called. You remember Judith May? I nodded that I did, when in reality, I'd never heard of her. She continued. Judith May was her niece. Now remember, I'm Aunt Anna's great niece. Your uncle and I lived here in town, in the house that I sold just before I moved here. Judith May lived about 10 miles out in the country. That was a long way back in those days. She rambled about other things for a minute or two, and then I steered her back to Aunt Emma's story. Judith May called and asked whether your uncle and I would mind meeting the train, as Aunt Emma was coming to visit. She had been spending some time with a nephew in New Orleans, and would be arriving on the City of New Orleans that afternoon. The City, that was the fanciest train on the Illinois Central. Judith May said she was having car trouble and would not be able to get to town in time. She assured me that she would be in to pick her up first thing in the morning. I knew better. Judith May had lied to me before, but there was really nothing I could do. So we met the train and took Aunt Emma in the trunk to her house. I never saw or heard from Judith May as long as she was on the top side of this earth. I didn't go to her funeral either when she died, not because she tricked me, but because of the way she did her Aunt Emma. Remember, she was her aunt, not mine, and she had more responsibility than I did. I was curious. Well, how long did she stay with you? Well, she stayed with us the rest of her life. After a couple of months, she got sick. I took her to the doctor, and when he examined her, he called me into his office. Nell, he said, you don't need the responsibility of that old woman. She has cancer in her female organs, and she's going to die. She's going to die, but it won't be real soon. You're going to have your hands full taking care of her. I told him that she had no place to go, and I could not turn her out on the street. I would never have done that even to a stray dog. He handed me a bottle of pills. Leaving the office, he turned and said, when the pain gets bad, give her one of these. You may need one for yourself, too. I don't envy what you're going to be going through. She lived almost a year, and we took good care of her. She died on Easter Sunday, 1947. I remember your mother going to the funeral. I remember it because she was pregnant with you. The last day of poor Emma's life, she really suffered. She talked out of her head and made no nonsense with what she said. Some of it we just never figured out. One thing she kept repeating was, Lord, Lord, I forgive Press. Lord, don't let me die without you knowing I forgive Press. She said that over and over again. The only thing she owned was this trunk and a ring. I've already told you that. But it did not keep those nieces and nephews from calling, writing, and coming by to see me. They wanted to know if she left them any money. She had no money. I paid for her funeral, and I didn't give her a pauper's funeral either. I made the funeral home use the new hearse. That cost me $5 extra. I finally told those relatives that I was glad they called. I did not have any money for them, but I had some medical bills and funeral expenses for them to pay. I never heard from them again. That was the last visit I had with my Aunt Nell. She gave me the photo, and within a few weeks, she passed away. I helped clean out her belongings, and the few things that she had were labeled as to whom they were to be given. My name was not on anything, but I mentioned that I wanted the truck. No one else wanted it, so I took it home. We cleaned it up a little, stored a few items inside that we seldom use, and we made a table out of it in our den. The trunk grew on us. Both Brenda, my wife, and I liked it. And after the movie Titanic, it seemed there was a revival in interest in old steamer trunks. Years passed, and in August of 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck our community. Our house flooded. The house only had about a foot of water, but that was just enough to ruin some furniture and make a real big mess. As we attempted to save furniture, we put some of it in the sun to dry. We questioned the wisdom of trying to salvage Aunt Emma's trunk. I decided to put it in the trash pile to be picked up by the FEMA cleanup crew. When it was pitched in the pile, it landed on its side and the top flew open. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. There was a false bottom in the trunk that had been jarred loose, and something was underneath it. My imagination ran wild. Was it the money the relatives had sought? It did not take long to see that there was no money, but carefully wrapped in wax paper were newspaper clippings, one dried flower, and letters. All the letters turned out to be from Preston Bankston except two. The first letter that we read was dated May the 10th, 1898. Dear M, let me start by telling you that I love you. I did not leave to be gone forever, just had this Cuban fever. You see, every grandpa I've had has fought in some war. One in the Great Revolution, and one went down to New Orleans with Jackson. That was with those, and then we fought with the Yankees too. And now it's my time to fight. I will be back, and we will try to buy that piece of land near your family. I told you when I was 12 years old you would be my wife, and I meant it. I hope you like the ring I gave you. I hope it makes you remember me. Love you, Press. The date and the phrase Cuban fever indicates he was referring to the Spanish-American War. It only lasted for 4 months and is alluded to in the next letter. September the 12th, 1898. Dear M, no, I'm not coming home right now. I really wanted to fight down here, but the war ended before I could get anything done. The president said that it was a dandy little war, but not for me. We're just sitting around. Some men are requesting to be discharged, and many are very sick. I want to see if I can get sent to the Philippines. I hear you can really do some war over there if you get attached to Major John Pearson's outfit. They call him Blackjack. No, you should never doubt I love you, and I will be home, but I have to do I got to be in at least one war. Love, Press. September the 21st, 1903. M. I enjoyed the time I was home with you, and I already miss you, but I need to do something to make some money before we get married. The canal, now that's a project. They call it the Panama Canal Project. No one has been able to do it, but I think us Americans can get it dug. It pays good money. 2 years there, and we will have what we need. Just be sure I love you, and plan on our wedding in 2 years. I love you, Press. August the 18th, 1905. Dear Miss Emma, Preston asked me to write this letter to you for him if need be. He said you were the only one that needed to be notified. You see, Preston got the fever. I don't know which one. We have several kinds of fever down here. We all thought he was going to pull through, but he died in his sleep 2 nights ago. You'll be pleased to know he did not suffer. He was buried yesterday, and the ladies from the village made some of the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen. I'm enclosing one for you as a keepsake. He told me to tell you he loved you. I was his friend, and I'm from Oklahoma. With sympathy, Benjamin Sullivan. There were many other letters that I did not quote from Preston. The only other 2 letters were the death letter from Benjamin Sullivan and the following one. It was from Emma, and it was never mailed. The envelope was addressed to Preston Bankston in care of General Delivery, Ada, Oklahoma. I unsealed the envelope that had never been opened, and I read the following. December the 12th, 1920. Preston, how much it hurt me when I ran into your cousin yesterday in Baton Rouge. I had not seen her since 1900. I did not even know that she had moved to Baton Rouge. She told me that you were, of all things, alive and well in Oklahoma. She told me that you married the sister of a friend of yours that you met in Panama. Could that be that friend Benjamin Sullivan, the one who sent me the letter about your death? I understand you have 3 sons, and I'm happy for you. Happy for you, but I will never forgive you for this. 15 years I've given to your memory. 15 years, the best years of my life. I swore when I got the letter of your death that I would never love again. After knowing you're alive, I will never trust to love in the future. Much happiness to you, but no forgiveness from me, ever. Emma. The note from the Storyteller. I did some research and found a B.A. Bankston on the newly released 1940 census. He was born in Mississippi, mother and father born in Louisiana. That fits who he was. If he is the one, he became a very wealthy old man in Oklahoma. I cannot be certain if he married Benjamin Sullivan's sister, but her maiden name did start with an S. If he is the correct Bankston, he died 2 years after Emma in 1947.